Greetings and welcome. We are in Senior English A, and our objective now this hour is to work with the final scene, scene 3, of the 4th act of Macbeth. So we are in Macbeth 4:3, and I want to give you what we will often refer to as a schemata, that is to say a way to kind of understand a text. And there's a couple of different ways to do this. One way is this question. I want you to jot it down. I want you to think a little bit about it. We might answer it, in fact. I think we will answer it. And it's this question, and it's derived from the great philosopher Plato, P-L-A-T-O, and his classic dialogue Republic, and it runs something like this. What makes a great leader? Now that is an intriguing question. What makes a great leader? The next time, for example, that you hear someone lambasting a certain political personage, whether it be president or governor or whatever, after this individual has gone on for some time at length about what's wrong with the leader, simply turn to him or her and ask the simple question. Plato loved this question. Clearly, you do not approve of our current leader. You're darn right I don't. Good. So tell me, what does make a great leader? Don't give me a name, rather give me attributes. That is to say, beyond a name, beyond a certain person that you might consider to be a great leader, I'm asking a more fundamentally philosophic question, and it is really one of the questions of this play, Macbeth. What is it that makes a great leader? For example, would you constitute Duncan, King Duncan, as a great leader? We're going to argue that probably not, for reasons that we will stipulate as we go through 4:3. We'll ask, obviously, the question, is Macbeth a great leader? Now, through the course of the history of ideas, this is not so easy a question to answer. Okay? Plato will answer that what makes a great leader is the big 3. We can jot them down. Ethos, pathos, logos. Now, these, of course, are Greek words. We'll define them. Ethos, pathos, and logos. Plato, in his great dialogue Republic, will argue, first of all, a great leader has ethos. What we today would call moral authenticity. In other words, tells the truth. Doesn't harm others without some just cause. Morally accountable. Ethos. Pathos. Able to instruct by emotional appeals. This is the old likability test, if you will. In other words, the leader somehow connects with his or her people, and in the process of doing so, leads the people. Often the people will maybe say, don't really completely know where we're going, but I trust this individual because this individual lives a morally adequate life and appeals to the emotions that matter to me, namely, maybe survival. 3, logos. This one is extremely important to Plato, and it runs something like this. If you're going to be a great leader, you better be able to lead using the mind. Intelligence. We would call it today logic, or, Mr. Keeley, the rationale. That is to say, the people must believe that there is some kind of logic behind the decisions. And here's why, Mr. Brown. It leads to what we would call predictability. In other words, some of us were raised by parents, for example. You never could predict what these individuals were going to do or say. One time you could go up and say, I'm going out on a Friday night, and they would be, great, no problem. The other time you come up and, same thing, I'm going out. And all of a sudden it turns into a World War IV. We'll just bypass 3. And you find yourself saying, you know, I never can completely predict this. Some of you have friends like this. One day, they're very even keel. The next day, for no apparent reason, they can find themselves completely almost like a Jekyll and Hyde kind of character, personality, where all of a sudden you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then, of course, you cannot make predictions. Plato argued, not a good leader. A good leader is an individual who is fairly consistent in applying the rules. Rational, logical. And the people grow accustomed to this, and therefore will follow. Now, as I say, in the history of thought, this has not always been the accepted view of good leadership. The classic antithetical example of this is the great intellectual philosopher Machiavelli. Machiavelli's Italian, and he's writing many years later in the Italian Renaissance, and he says the opposite. He begins with a simple question. Again, for those of us who are having discourse with individuals, for example, who have a problem with leaders of any kind, maybe it's the President of the United States or some other kind of leader, if you were to ask what specifically constitutes a good leader, well, one answer is Plato's answer: ethos, pathos, logos. And if you've got those three things in abundance, you're going to be a good leader. And you can certainly go through the history of the world and try and find some leaders with those attributes. And you could argue, yeah, they seem to be able to lead well because they had those attributes. Machiavelli goes the exact opposite, and he says, whoa, 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 study history. And what do you find when you study history? He writes a little classic essay called The Prince. And in this essay, he says the following: the great leader, he's the great liar. Now, our first instincts here are to say, whoa, 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 I don't buy it. But Machiavelli says, you should buy it, because the greatest leaders in the history of the world could look right at the enemy and say, you are my friend. And the minute the friend turned around, bang. And in so doing, gain power. For Machiavelli, way more important than ethos, pathos, or logos, for Machiavelli is power. Power. If you've got power, people will fear you. Machiavelli asks it this way, and this is an important consideration when we hit 4:3 of Macbeth. Is it better as a leader to be feared or to be loved? This is an intriguing question Machiavelli asks. By the way, we can adjust this question to maybe a parent. Some of you will sooner or later, insurance statistics suggesting this, will sooner or later end up parents. And it's always an intriguing question to ask about a parent. Is it better to be feared or is it better to be loved? So, for example, the parent says to the child at age 17, you will be home at 12 o'clock, not 1 minute later.
That does not work.
Here we go. This is an obvious one. Mr. Frederick says that does not work, which is interesting because some parents will say, you will be home at 12 o'clock. If it's 12:01, everything you own sitting in the front yard, I'm getting rid of it at 7 o'clock the next morning unless you carted it off. You need to find some other place to live. Now, if you believe that parent, what time you coming home? Well, it all depends on whether you want a place to stay, doesn't it? If you don't care about having a bed to sleep in that house, you'll come home at 12:05 just to see. But if you have any sense that where you sleep matters to you, you're going to be in your house probably 10 minutes before midnight, aren't you? If you believe that parent. Now, the question is, are you going to be in that house before 12 o'clock because you love the parent or because you fear the parent? Machiavelli says this is a no-brainer question. He says the problem with being loved is that you can be taken advantage of. But a parent who rules from fear, you're going to do what the parent says. Why? Because you will get jacked if you break the rules. Simple. For Machiavelli, raising kids is very simple. You make a rule. If the kid breaks the rule, you jack him, and I mean jack him hard. Not a little bit, a lot. And you do it early on so that the kid understands, oh, I get it. You're for real. That is to say, authentic. You're not messing around playing head games with me. When you say do something, you really mean it. Now, some of you will say, you know, that's all interesting in the abstract, but it really doesn't work in real life. Machiavelli says, I beg to differ. When you look at the people who have been the most powerful people in the world, we think of Genghis Khan and other great domineering, Napoleon and other kind of great leaders, immediately what comes to mind is they didn't stand around scratching themselves saying, do you think you would follow me? I mean, can I do anything to accommodate to your needs so that you might consider me a good leader? No! Machiavelli says it's quite the opposite. The leader has tremendous self-confidence, goes out and does what he does. If you don't like it, that's why they're bullets. That's why they're bullets, right? I mean, we can take care of you. You are the dissenter. That's no problem. You have the right to dissent, and I'm going to put a bullet in you, and we'll go on to the next project. Now, the study of the 20th century is obviously an interesting study in regards to these two managerial or leadership traits. You can take every single president. It'd be a fun study, wouldn't it? You can take every single president of the United States and ask this question. Are they more in line with Plato's view of leadership, ethos, pathos, logos? Or are they more in line with Machiavelli's view of leadership? That is to say, might makes Right. What we call strategic violence.
I know a good one of Machiavelli's would look like a Plato.
I'm sorry, say it again.
A good follower of Machiavelli's would probably appear to look, or be a Plato's.
You hear what he said. In other words, a great Machiavellian leader would appear to look like a Platonist leader, that is to say, ethos, pathos, logos, while at the same time being something far different. You only find it out later, maybe, we might say. Brilliant observation, Mr. Q. Now we turn to Act 4, Scene 3. For those of you who see my introduction a bit elongated, I hope that I can make some continuity. Macduff has just lost his wife, he just doesn't know it. Now we're not interested in Macduff's wife, though. We are interested in Macduff himself and where he is, England, and who he's with. Malcolm. Now, who is Malcolm? Last time we saw Malcolm, when did we see him? His father had just gotten bunged, huh? And you'll remember that his brother and he, who's his brother? Donald Bain. Donald Bain and Malcolm both look at each other and say, whoa, 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 it's early morning. Daddy just got jacked badly. We got to get out of Dodge. We separate. One goes to Ireland, that's Donald Bain. One goes to, write it in your notes, why is Macduff in England? Now this is an interesting question. Why is Macduff in England? What is the point of Macduff leaving Scotland? We know that there's serious problems with him doing this from the last scene, huh? He left his wife and children. That was a bad play, right? But why has he done it? I mean, what, is he down there looking to buy property or something so he can like leave Scotland and move down to England? Maybe he's looking for a little bit of property on the Dover Beach area, you know, that kind of... No. He's left Scotland and gone to England. Why? He is interested in returning to Scotland with the King of Duncan. Why? We're going to have civil war, aren't we? That is to say, Macduff does not believe Macbeth the worthy heir to the throne. He doesn't believe he's been a good king. He's going to displace him. Now, will he displace him by asking Macbeth, would you please step down from the throne? That ain't going to work. We know enough about Macbeth to know that ain't going to work. So in other words, we're going to have some violent action, right? Fair or foul, violent action. Normally, a violent action is going to be foul, right? It's going to be somebody's got to die, right? To gain the betterment of Scotland, fair or foul? Fair, right? So Macduff is showing up to ask Malcolm, hey, let's go back and let's go to war. Question for your notes, and initially, sometimes seniors have to play through this one intellectually, and then they go, oh yeah. Why might Malcolm be a little bit worried about Macduff showing up? Who is Macduff? Who is he in relationship to Macbeth? He's number 2 in the kingdom, right? Now that Banquo's gone, Macduff's the top general in all of Scotland. Why might Malcolm be a little bit worried Macduff shows up? He might be assuming, right, Macbeth has sent this guy to kill me. Malcolm has a difficult proposition that will play nicely with Malcolm's daddy's, Duncan's, observation in Act 1. There is no art to find the mind's construction in the face. What does that mean? You cannot tell, remember this is pure Machiavelli, you cannot tell what somebody really feels by looking at that somebody's what? Face. You can't tell, can you? You don't know. Malcolm's got a problem. Macduff has shown up in England and he said, hey, let's go back, I'm on your side, let's go back and fight against Macbeth and we'll get you the throne. But Macduff, or Malcolm, let's put it in our notes this way. Malcolm learned something from Daddy that makes him a little better leader than Daddy. Malcolm realizes there is an art to find the mind's construction in the face. There is a way. There is a test. There's any number of tests. Let's say it this way. It's fairly evident by virtue of the old Thane of Cawdor and then the new Thane of Cawdor, Macbeth, that Duncan was a little too trusting. You hearing me here? A little too trusting. He's the freshman that shows up at the University of Wyoming and goes to the first party and says, hey, sure, whatever you guys tell me to do, that's what that's what we do in our freshmen. You're telling me I trust you, right? How many young ladies on campuses in the universities will often report, but he was really good looking and he seemed so nice. You know, and you read a play like Macbeth and you're like, are you completely stupid? Of course he was really good looking and of course he seemed really nice so he could do what he did. Really? That's, you know, really? That's Malcolm's view. Really? You're really here to help me? I got to test you. The way he tests Macbeth or Macduff is fascinating. The way he tests Macduff is to say the following. Macduff says, listen, we need you to come back to Scotland and be king. And Macduff said, or Malcolm says to Macduff, you know, I don't think I'd be a very good king. I don't think I'd be a very good king. Macduff's like, what are you talking about? Of course you'd be a good king. No, I don't think so. Here's why. I'm probably going to go back to Scotland, and every single young girl I can find, I'm going to sleep with her. I'm going to rape all the young girls in all of Scotland. Because that's just the way I am. That's the kind of guy I am. Macduff kind of looks at him and says, dude, we have a lot of girls in Scotland. That's what he says. We got a lot of girls in Scotland. Malcolm's not done. He goes, oh no, you don't understand. I'm very greedy. And I like to take people's stuff. And when I go back to Scotland, I'm going to take all of the rich people's property for my own. Because I want a lot of property. Macduff will say, ooh, that's a little bit worse than the girl thing. We got property, but people don't like parting with their property. I don't know. And then Malcolm says it one more time, but you don't understand. I'm even worse than that. I'm going to kill whoever I want. I'm going to make Macbeth look like a good leader. And Macduff will say, oh, I guess I was wrong. I'm sorry, my bad. And it's at that point, when he turns around to leave, that Malcolm goes, hey, 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 just kidding, just kidding. I was just testing you to see if you were for reals. Fascinating. In other words, he pretends to lie, to be foul, so he can find out if Macduff is fair. And in the process, it works. Onto the stage will come Ross. He's unrecognizable at first. He's been traveling a long distance. The last time we saw Ross was when? Last scene, right? Last scene. Remember, it was Ross who told Lady Macduff, really, things can't get any worse. They got to get better. Dark irony. You know, it can't get any worse. What worse could happen than what's already happened? Shakespeare has an answer to that, and it's a dark answer, right? Ross comes on stage. Immediately, Malcolm will say to Ross, hey, don't worry about it. We're going to come back to Scotland together. Me and Macduff, we're going to take care of business. We've already got the army ready to go. It's at that point that Ross will then confide to Macduff, yeah, I got bad news. Your castle has been attacked. Your wife, and he will say it this way, all of your pretty babes, dead. It will be at this point that Macduff has to come to a nasty realization. He will say it out loud. They died for thee. He's talking to himself. They died for thee. In other words, Macduff takes personal responsibility. He does in Elizabethan England what would show on the stage that you were really upset. He takes his hat and he pulls it down over his face and his ears. Part of this is so he can weep without being seen. Right? He's wanting to not look like a crybaby, but obviously he's weeping. Malcolm, who starts the scene by saying, let's go find a tree and sit under it and cry our eyes out because Scotland's so sad. And Macduff starts the scene by saying, no way, let's get swords and go fight against this tyrant. Now the roles reverse. Macduff is ready to sit down under a tree and cry for obvious and right reasons. And it's Malcolm who will say, yeah, hey, don't be too sad about this. Use this as the whetstone. He uses an interesting word picture. It's like a sword, and the way you would sharpen a sword is on a stone that you would whetten. He says, use this to sharpen your anger. And at the end of this scene, and at the end of the fourth act, you will have the Macduff praying to God to say, Bring me face to face with this tyrant, and I will jack him. And of course, if you'll think about it, these are all of the Jackie Chan films you know. Before you have the major meeting, before Jackie Chan and the bad guy, you have to have a moment that precedes that, right? When it looks as if it's going to go the other direction, right? And everything's going to go south, and it's all going to be bad. And of course, the audience then, for Shakespeare, is ready to see the fifth act and go, hurrah, our hero, as Macduff is going to march against Scotland. And we know inevitably we're going to have this meeting, right? Now, there's one part of this scene I left out. And it's an interesting one. And it's one oftentimes misunderstood. In the middle of the conversation between Malcolm and Macduff early on in 4-3, a doctor comes onto the stage. A doctor. Now, this is important because we're going to meet a doctor several more times in this play. Onto the stage he comes, and the doctor talks about how great it is to be a doctor in England. How come? Well, he says, we have this amazing king down here. He is so unbelievable that he walks through the hospitals, and when his shadow hits sick people, they get well. That's how unbelievably powerful and good our king is. Of course, the observation is, when Macbeth's shadow touches you, what? Right. We have an interesting kind of dichotomy. Wait. Who's sitting in the audience of the first performance of this play? Who just happens to be related to Banquo 5 generations earlier? King James liked to believe that he also had this power, that people could touch him and they would begin to feel healthier, better. Right? Okay. This notion that he had special power from God to heal people and the like. James himself had a little bit of that, kind of conceit. And so Shakespeare's clearly playing a game here. Throughout this entire scene, though, I want you to keep in the back of your mind the question we began with. What constitutes a great leader? Will Malcolm be a better leader than Macbeth? And if so, and if you answer yes, you have to answer yes on reasons. Machiavelli might say, no, he will not. Machiavelli might say, in fact, Macbeth is a great leader in one regards. He knows how to take care of his business and gain power. He did gain power. The problem maybe Machiavelli will say is Macbeth is a little bit imbalanced to keep at it. He should have been a little bit better prepared for the violence that was necessary to hold power. On the other hand, you might say Plato seems to probably be better on board here. And Machiavelli probably has missed the boat on this count. In the end, a parent can only threaten so long. And then the kid, especially as the kid gets older, ultimately can say, you know what? Fine, I'll go find someplace else to live. You're going to throw down on me like this. Especially, for example, if you show up to the parent's house at 12:30 and you try to explain to the parent, I had a situation that I had to resolve and I couldn't be back here at time. And the parent says, I don't care, you're gone. And you say, but there's no logic to that. You're not even going to hear what I got to say? I'm not. I had a rule, you broke the rule, you're done. See what I'm saying? Plato would say, you got to have some intelligence in the application of your rules. It's clear Malcolm has learned something, even as a young man, about what it takes to be a leader. And one of the foundational rules is you don't trust everybody who comes up to you and says, hey, I'm on your side, pal. You're not gullible, right? You have to kind of be more judicious. What does that word mean? Judicious means wise. Wise. All right, here we go. We'll listen now to 4-3. And of course, culminating with that really tragic moment when Macduff hears,
let us rather hold fast the mortal sword, and like good men bestride our downfall and birth them. Each new morn, new widows howl.
Follow it.
You sorrow strike heaven on the face that it resounds as if it felt with Scotland, and yelled out like syllable of Dona.
What I believe, I will. What no, believe. And what I can redress, as I shall find the time to spread, I will. What you have spoke, it may be so, perchance. This tyrant whose sole name blisters our tongues was once thought honest. You have loved him well. He hath not touched you yet. I am young, but something you may discern of him through me, and wisdom to offer up a weak, poor, innocent lamb to appease an angry god.
I am not treacherous.
Macbeth is. A good and virtuous nature may recoil in an imperial charge, but I shall crave your pardon. That which you are, my thoughts cannot transpose. Angels are bright still, though the brightest fell. Though all things foul would wear the brows of grace, yet grace must still look so.
I have lost my hopes.
Perchance, even there where I did find my doubts. Why in that rawness left you wife and child?
Good question.
those precious motives, those strong knots of love, without leave-taking. I pray you, let not my jealousies be your dishonors, but mine own safeties. You may be rightly just, whatever I shall think.
Bleed, bleed, poor country. Great tyranny, lay thou thy bases sure, for goodness dare not check thee. Wear thou thy wrongs, the title is afeard. Fare thee well, lord. I would not be the villain that thou think'st, for the whole space that's in the tyrant's grasp, and the riches to boot.
Be not offended. I speak not as in absolute fear of you. I think our country sinks beneath the yoke. It weeps, it bleeds, and each new day a gash is added to her wounds. I think withal there would be hands uplifted in my right, and here from gracious England have I offer of goodly thousands. But for all this, when I shall tread upon the tyrant's head or wear it on my sword, yet my poor country shall have more vices than it had before.
See, here we go.
Or suffer,
The test.
more sundry ways than ever by him that shall succeed.
What should he be?
It is myself, I mean, in whom I know all the particulars of vice so grafted that when they shall be opened, black Macbeth will seem as pure as snow, and the poor state esteem him as a lamb, being compared with my confineless halves.
Not in the legions of horrid hell can come a devil more damned in evils to top Macbeth.
I grant him bloody, luxurious, avaricious, false, deceitful, sudden, malicious, smacking of every sin that has a name. But there's no bottom, none, in my voluptuousness. Your wives, your daughters, your matrons, and your maids could not fill up the cistern of my lust. And my desire, all continent impediments would o'erbear that did oppose my will. Better Macbeth than such a one to reign.
Boundless intemperance in nature is a tyranny. It hath been the untimely emptying of the happy throne and fall of many kings. But fear not yet to take upon you what is yours. You may convey your pleasures in a spacious plenty, and yet seem cold the time you may so hoodwink. We have willing dames enough. There cannot be that vulture in you to devour so many as will to greatness dedicate themselves, finding it so inclined.
With this there grows in my most ill-composed affection such a staunchless avarice, that were I king, I should cut off the nobles for their lands, desire his jewels at this other's house, and my more having would be as a source to make me hunger more, that I should forge quarrels unjust against the good and loyal, destroying them for wealth.
This avarice sticks deeper.
Avarice, greed.
Grows with more pernicious root than summer seeming lust, and it hath been the sword of our slain kings. Yet do not fear. Scotland hath poisons to fill up your will of your mere own. All these are portable with other graces weighed.
But I have none. The king becoming graces.
Here they are.
Justice,
Good
fidelity,
kings.
temperance, stableness, bounty, perseverance, mercy, lowliness, devotion, patience, courage, fortitude. I have no relish of them, but abound in the division of each several crime.
There's your list of great
Nay,
Platonist
had I
characteristics.
power, I should pour the sweet milk of concord into hell, uproar the universal peace, confound all unity on earth.
Oh, Scotland.
It's over, he says.
Scotland.
If such a one be fit to govern, speak. I am as I have spoken.
Fit to govern? No, not to live. O nation miserable, with an untitled tyrant, blood is sceptred, when shalt thou see thy wholesome days again? Since to the truest issue of thy throne, by his own interdiction stands accused, and does blaspheme his breed. Thy royal father was a most sainted king. The queen that bore thee, oftener upon her knees and on her feet, died every day she lived. Fare thee well. These evils thou repeatest upon thyself have banished me from Scotland. Oh, my breast, thy hope ends here.
Macduff,
Fair
this
foul.
passion, child of integrity, hath from my soul wiped the black scruples, reconciled my thoughts to thy good truth and honor. Devilish Macbeth by many of these trains hath sought to win me into his power, and modest wisdom plucks me from over-credulous haste. But God above deal between thee and me. For even now I put myself to thy direction, and unspeak mine own detraction. Here abjure the taints and blames I laid upon myself, for strangers to my nature. I am yet unknown to woman, never was forsworn, Scarcely had coveted what was mine own, at no time broke my faith, would not betray the devil to his fellow, and delight no less in truth than life. My first false speaking was this upon myself. What I am truly is thine and my poor country's to command. Whether indeed before thy here approach, old Seward with 10,000 warlike men already at a point was setting forth. Now we'll together, and the chance of goodness be like our warranted quarrel. Why are you silent?
Such welcome and unwelcome things at once, 'tis hard to reconcile.
Well, more anon. Comes the king forth, I pray you?
Aye, sir, there are a crew of wretched souls that stay his cure. Their malady convinces the great assay of art, but at his touch, such sanctity hath heaven given his hand, they presently amend.
I thank you, doctor.
What's the disease he means?
It is called the evil. A most miraculous work in this good king, which often since my here remain in England I have seen him do. How he solicits heaven himself best knows. But strangely visited people, all swollen and ulcerous, pitiful to the eye, the mere despair of surgery, he cures, hanging a golden stamp about their necks, put on with holy prayers, and 'tis spoken to the succeeding royalty he leaves the healing benediction. With this strange virtue, he hath a heavenly gift of prophecy, and sundry blessings hang about his throne, that speak him full of grace.
See, who comes here?
My countryman, but yet I know him not.
My ever-gentle cousin, welcome hither.
I know him now. Good God, betimes remove the means that makes us strangers.
Sir, amen.
Stand Scotland where it did.
Alas, poor country, almost afraid to know itself. It cannot be called our mother, but our grave, where nothing but who knows nothing is once seen to smile, where sighs and groans and shrieks that rent the air are made, not marked, where violent sorrow seems a modern ecstasy. The dead man's knell is there scarce asked for who, and good men's lives expire before the flowers in their caps, dying or ere they sicken.
Relation too nice, and yet too true.
What's the newest grief?
That of an hour's age doth hiss the speaker. Each minute tells a new one.
How does my wife?
Why, well,
And all my children?
well, too.
The tyrant has not battered their peace.
No, they were well at peace when I did leave them.
Be not a niggard of your speech, how goes it?
When I came hither to transport the tidings which I have heavily borne, there ran a rumour of many worthy fellows that were out, which was to my belief witness the rather, for that I saw the tyrant's power afoot. Now is the time of help. Your eye in Scotland would create soldiers, make our women fight to doff their dire distresses.
Be it their comfort, we are coming thither. Gracious England hath lent us good Seward and 10,000 men, an older and a better soldier, none that Christendom gives out.
Would I could answer this comfort with the like.
All right, here it comes.
But I have words that would be howled out in the desert air where hearing should not latch them.
And what concern they? The general cause, or is it a fee grief due to some single breast?
No mind that's honest, but in it shares some woe, though the main part pertains to you alone.
If it be mine, keep it not from me quickly, let me have it.
Let not your ears despise my tongue forever, which shall possess them with the heaviest sound that ever yet they heard.
I guess it.
I guess
Your
it.
castle is surprised, your wife and babes savagely slaughtered. To relate the manner whereon the quarry of these murdered dear to had the death of you.
Merciful heavens. What man? Now pull your hat upon your brows. Give sorrow words. The grief that does not speak whispers the o'erfraught heart and bids it break.
My children, too. Wife, children, servants, all that could be found.
And I must be from thence. My wife will too.
I have said.
Be comforted. Let's make us medicines of our great revenge to cure this deadly grief.
She has no children! Oh, my pretty ones. Did you say all? Oh, hell. Kite! Oh! What all my pretty chickens in their dam at one fell swoop.